this afternoon a couple of more drawings for the Lear Jet Getaway, as well as a few other surprises along the line. But first and foremost, let me get right down to business. I am becoming so confused. My eye, of course, is firmly shut, winking on that one. I'm really becoming very fascinated with the controversy concerning satanic verses. Yesterday, I was watching the television, and when I got home from work, and apparently I saw something incorrectly because we double-checked on it this morning, and well, I'll tell you what, I'm getting ahead of myself. I have on which line, Michael? On line 11. Okay, I have on line 11 a gentleman with the Catholic Diocese in the city of New York. His name is Joe Will.
Yes, you are, Bob.
Okay, Joe is the Assistant Director of Communications for the Diocese of New York. Joe, I could have referring to the book Satanic Verses as blasphemy.
Ron, Church also denounces any kind of death threats or any of the types of actions that have been threatened against the author of this book. And Cardinal O'Connor did that himself. But if you'd like, I can read to you from what the Church wrote in Nostra Aetate regarding Muslims. I'd be happy to do that.
How lengthy is it?
It's a few sentences.
Well, please go right ahead.
In the document, it says the Church regards with esteem the Muslims. They adore, they meaning the Muslims, adore the one God, living and subsisting in himself, merciful and all-powerful, the creator of heaven and earth, who has spoken to men. They take pains to submit wholeheartedly to even his inscrutable degrees, just as Abraham, with whom the faith of Islam takes pleasure in linking itself submitted to God. Though they do not acknowledge Jesus as God, they revere him as prophet. They also honor Mary, his virgin mother. At times they even call on her with devotion. In addition, they await the day of judgment when God will render their deserts to all those who have been raised up from the dead. Finally, they value the moral life and worship God especially through prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. In that document, they were pointing out the many similarities between the two faiths, but also talking about the need for respect between all faiths.
Joe, now I'm even more confused. Why isn't Satanic Verses blasphemy then?
I haven't read the book, and the Cardinal has not read the book either. As obviously you have the transcript, you've seen it, he admits as much. The Muslim people, though,
do you
take
not...
it as an attack on their faith.
Joe, do either you or the Cardinal doubt the report, because I haven't read the book either, but do either you or the Cardinal doubt the reports from such prestigious news organizations as Reuters, United Press International, know what the objections are? And therefore, I would wonder why, if the Catholic Church's official position is that the Muslims worship the same God.
This is Cardinal O'Connor's position. The Catholic Church has not taken any kind of official position.
Well, no,
the Vatican has not taken.
No, sir. I was referring to what you just read to me. 20 years ago, obviously the Catholic Church took the position that the Muslims worship the same God, and now I'm really confused as to why it isn't blasphemy. Just what the problem is. Didn't the Church really mean that 20 years ago?
I'm not sure I'm following what you're asking.
Didn't you just read that the Catholic Church says, well, okay, there are a few things that we don't get along with here, but primarily the Muslims are good people who worship the same God.
There are very fundamental differences between
but it's the same God, right?
And Muslims. Yes.
Isn't that what the Church said? I mean, I appreciate that I'm really simplifying things here, but 20 years ago the Church said the same God. Okay, so there are some problems here, there are some differences here, but it's the same God, and they're not bad guys, these Muslims. Now I don't understand why it isn't blasphemy. Why are we insulting Islam?
Again, I'm not sure I'm following your question, Bob.
Why isn't it blasphemy, sir? Why does Cardinal O'Connor not consider it blasphemy? I mean, these are terrible things that have been said about the Koran and the.
You asked me had the Cardinal called the book blasphemous, and I said no, he had not said that.
Right now, I'm asking why he hasn't.
Well, if you want to call him in Rome, you're welcome to do that. I can't answer that question. He was not asked if he considered the book blasphemous. He did say that the many Muslim spokesmen, critics who have said that the book is an attack on their faith and an insult to Islam, and he was not going to tell them they were wrong.
Webster's dictionary says to speak of or address something sacred, especially God, impiously or irreverently. Would that more or less coincide in, again, I know I'm asking a difficult question here, but would that more or less coincide with the Catholic definition of blasphemy?
More or less.
How could the church say that it was anything but blasphemy? With Mr.
Well, that's something that you're drawing for yourself. Was asked on this program to talk about what the Cardinal said, what precisely he said this past Sunday, and not to speculate on why he didn't say something else. And I'd be happy to do that and try and explain what he did say.
Well, apparently what he said was he was dancing around it. Am I to assume that the Cardinal does not really have great respect for Islam?
No, you should not assume that. And I also would not want to put words in his mouth.
Well, nor would I.
The Cardinal was asked about. He was trying to express the very real respect that we have for Muslims and for their faith. And he was any attack on that faith, any attack on anybody else's faith, whether it be another Christian faith, the Jewish faith, the Buddhist faith, the Muslim faith. When you attack any person's faith and hold it up for ridicule, you're attacking all faiths.
Again, Joe, I'm just so darn confused because I know that virtually any Catholic priest, be a bishop, an archbishop, a cardinal, or just a simple assistant in a parish somewhere, would attack unbelievably Islam if I were to walk in there tonight and say, hey, I'm going to switch over from Catholicism to Islam.
I'm sure they would try and talk you out of it, or most probably would, but why don't you try it? I mean, I don't understand how that...
well, would that be what would they tell me, Joe? They would tell me it is not the true religion. I will not go to heaven by being a follower of Islam.
I'm not a priest, and so I can't, again, answer for what a priest would say.
Oh, Joe, you know as well as I do that's what they tell me.
I'm sure that they probably would try to talk you out of it, but that does not...
Well, I just don't understand why it's okay for Mr. Rushdie to attack religion, but when a parish priest does it, hey, that's not attacking religion.
There's a difference between holding another religion up for ridicule and defending your own faith.
Well, I guess Mr. Rushdie was defending his faith. He sees Islam as being rather foolish. He is apparently aware of history. He is apparently aware of the fact that Muhammad could not read or write, and that there was a great deal of controversy. There is a great deal of controversy concerning just what went on around Muhammad as the Quran was being written, and when, by the way, exactly it was written. A lot of people seem to think that an awful lot of it was written long after Muhammad was gone. And, so it's wrong for Mr. Rushdie to be an agnostic or whatever he is and have his religious beliefs and views of Islam. That's somehow wrong. But a Catholic priest or a rabbi or whoever it might be, because they have gone to divinity school, they can attack other religions, but that's not bad.
When did I say people can attack other religions?
Well,
I think you're twisting my words.
No,
when
I'm
you
not twisting your words.
If somebody were to go to a priest, yourself, for instance, or somebody else
Joe,
were to go to a priest
and
say they wanted to convert, and a priest tried to defend their own faith and to talk about the why they believe Catholicism is true religion, why that is necessarily attacking and ridiculing other people's faith. I don't see how that follows.
Well, I find it very difficult to believe that Father O'Malley would jump up from behind the desk and grab my hand and start pumping it up and down and say, wise decision, Bob.
Well, I never said he would.
Of course he wouldn't. Father O'Malley
but I don't see where that translates into ridiculing somebody else's faith. If somebody wrote a book ridiculing Judaism, if somebody wrote a book ridiculing the faith of Presbyterians or Baptists or Methodists, we would that just as strongly. I mean, it's a question of ridiculing and holding up to scorn another person's faith. And that was what the cardinal was.
Well, I think when you say that somebody else's faith is not the one true faith, that's kind of ridiculing them. When they say that their faith is the one true faith, and you say, no, it isn't. Mine is, not yours. You've got it all wrong. That is not ridicule?
I don't see that as ridicule. If for me to say that I believe that Christ was the Son of God, who came down from heaven, who died on a cross, and was resurrected 3 days later, that does not mean that I'm saying to every person who does not believe that I'm holding up with ridicule and scorn.
Joe, do you believe that Muhammad was a prophet from God, that God spoke directly to Muhammad?
I don't know enough about the Muslim faith to be able to talk about that.
Then there's the possibility you do believe it?
No. Well, no, that's not in my... No, I don't believe that. Okay.
Do you believe that the Quran is dictated from God, word for word?
No, I don't.
Well, aren't you, in just saying that, isn't that ridiculing people who do believe that?
I mean, if that's your definition of ridicule, then that's ridicule. That's not my definition of ridicule. I don't think it's very many people's definition of what ridiculing another religion is. I can defend somebody else's right to believe that.
You can defend somebody else's right to believe what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it very much. 22 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. Corrupt shall not commit adultery. I guess that's not a very important commandment. That's not a very important commandment. I mean, why don't we have the death penalty for adultery and, riding your bicycle on Sunday? They must have been important to God. I mean, gee willikers, they only put together 10 of them. I mean, it's not like it was a list of 4,327, and some of them were frivolous. There were only 10. And he had all of eternity to think about them, and we only pay attention to a couple. I wonder why that would be. Why isn't there a death penalty for adultery? Why isn't there a death penalty for swearing? Whoa! That was one of them. Let me give you the telephone numbers. Like I said, you guys can talk about whatever you want to talk about, because I know that you're not capable of dealing with these things. I know that, here again, we're tugging on that rug, and you're starting to lose your balance there. So I'll just give you the telephone numbers. And, gosh, maybe you talk about that'd be exciting. 990-9352, 990-WFLA in Hillsborough, 461-9352, 461-WFLA in Pinellas. By the way, all of you good Catholics who are calling and talking to the switchboard operator, she's not quite capable of handling the conversation. I am the one who is, and you should use the number that I gave you and not trouble the poor switchboard operator. 461-9352, cowards. 990-9352 for you in-town cowards. 3:32 the time. Carol, hi, Carol. You're on 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob. Interesting little conversation with your fellow. I think it's typical. I think it's almost to be expected when you ask questions like that of people like that the answers are anything but an answer.
It's not because they're bad guys, or it's not because they're trying to avoid the issue. They themselves have never thought of it that way, and nobody's ever bothered to ask them before.
Well, I don't know. Is it that, or is it that when you have a religion that's so full of holes? Now, I'm not speaking of the Muslim religion or some of those, because I really don't know anything about those. I do know about the Christian religion, and every facet of it that I have seen so far have been introduced to is just full of gaping giant holes that are senseless and meaningless, that I can see where an attack on one of them singularly would have to be an attack on all, because if you in fact poke holes at your neighbor who shares the same stupid philosophies that you do, then eventually he's going to poke holes back at you. And
it would seem to me that, clearly this is a case, if you believe in blasphemy, this is a case of blasphemy. However, here's the problem. Like I was saying with poor old Joe, if I go in to see Father O'Malley tonight, how is Father O'Malley going to tell me I can't transfer over to Islam if he also says that Islam is a really fine religion?
Well, I think that comes right back down to the basic understanding that I think that many of us share, and that is that the whole 9 yards of it is probably started off to be very practical and very meaningful and very organizational, but it's evolved into stupidity and naiveness and some sort of a fantasy that we'd all like to believe in, but some of us can't because we're too analytical. And at this point, it's a scourge on society. It promotes things like we see today, where one man can write a fantasy book and another man can put a death threat on him for it. And I can understand the position of the father there, because, like I said, Christianity or the Catholic religion has very few things I can think of to be proud of. Certainly a lot to be ashamed of throughout history. And if they, in fact, start poking holes at any other religion, then they're going to come under fire too. And I think at this point it's a game. And I think that most of the people that are in it have to realize, somewhere deep inside their soul, they've got to realize that it's stupid and it doesn't make sense. But they're hoping, I suppose, with good intentions, I gather, that
I'll get a job in New York.
Huh?
But I'll get a job in New York.
Well, yeah.
Remind them of
that too. But I think they probably hope that maybe somewhere along the line, that even though it's all fraud, that it will influence the weak-minded persons in our society to not cause harm to each other and to other people. And I guess the idea isn't so bad, but I don't think it's useful anymore. I
want to go away, but might as well have a little fun with them, at least in the meanwhile.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Thank you, Carol.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. How'd you like to try this one on for size, okay? Most of you guys believe in God, right? Most of you guys believe in the Ten Commandments, right? Most of you guys believe that morals come from God, right? Well, if that's true, then one of two things has to happen. Either all of the Ten Commandments have to be made part of law, or because we're not supposed to have, religion and government mixing together, we would have to throw out murder, larceny, things of that nature, perjury, because these of course, are all based upon the Ten Commandments, right? And again, if some commandments are good, then all commandments are good, and if some commandments are bad, then all commandments are bad. So either the morals come from God, and therefore we would have to accept all of them, or the morals do not come from God, and we're kidding ourselves. Which one is it, do you suppose? 990-93, an open afternoon. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Hi, Tampa, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, I wanted to ask you why you're always hanging up on people all the time.
I don't hang up on people all the time.
Yeah, but some of the times you hang up, and I think that's pretty rude.
Some of the times I do, that's right.
That's rude.
No, it's not rude. It's good radio.
When's Joe going to be on the air again?
Joe who?
Joe Fernandez.
You mean Flores?
Yeah, whatever his name is.
Never heard the name before.
He's on Saturday. He's on last Saturday.
Well, you must have enjoyed him so much you remembered his name.
Well, he was ripping on you pretty bad.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't it astonishing that you need somebody to rip on me for? You can't do it yourself. I don't blame you. Hey, if I was such a nerd like you, I mean, if I was as low as you and as dumb as you, I too would look forward to having somebody else on me. Lido Beach. Hi there, Lido. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi.
Hi.
I saw that clip last night. It was on Koppel's show of Cardinal O'Connell. Don't you recall? If it's the same one we both saw, he advised Catholics not to read the book.
That's correct.
In fact, he's climbed into bed with Khomeini, hasn't he?
No, as a matter of fact, he hasn't, because he's not calling it blasphemy. Apparently.
But why should he advise Catholics not to? What has happened to intellectual freedom if we can't read that book?
Well, the Catholic Church has never been known for intellectual freedom. The Catholic Church has always told its followers what books and movies and plays and so forth and so on to read or not to read.
But this other fellow was right when he said that naturally they don't want to attack Muslimism because the Catholic faith is so full of holes, they're afraid somebody else will come back at them.
That's not at all what he said, man. That's not at all what he said.
All right, tell me.
Well, you had half of it right. He said he didn't want to attack the Muslim faith. He said nothing about because his own was full of holes. He didn't say anything like that.
Oh, no, he didn't. But that's the reason. I mean, he knows it's full of holes, don't you think? He's afraid, well,
I don't think it's any more full of holes than any other.
well, I thought we agreed on Bob a long time ago that it was, more or less a fraud.
Well, like I said, I don't think it's any more fraud than any other.
No, I don't think so either. But wasn't it shocking to see O'Connor stand up there with his high hat on and his big staff, and tell Catholics that they shouldn't read that book?
No, I didn't find it unusual. It's what's been going on for almost 2,000 years in that organization.
Right, yeah. But it made me mad as hell.
Well, it just makes me mad as hell that he doesn't call it blasphemy. That seems to me to be just an incredible insult to 1 billion, Muslims.
Well,
Also, apparently, against the teachings of his own church.
but he didn't call it blasphemy.
Right,
Yeah, well, see, they've made an about-face recently, Bob. They've made an about-face in regard to other religions. I guess they're not saying outside of the church there's no salvation anymore. They don't say that anymore. That's what you and I were brought up with, but they're not saying it anymore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas.
Vacations. Whether you're planning the...
You mean the guest on the phone, Joe's Willing?
Pardon?
The guest from New York, Joe's Willing?
Right.
Okay,
I don't pretend to be an expert, but I am Catholic, and I went to Catholic school for 12 years and had all the mandatory religion classes. And at one point we had classes in Eastern and Western non-Christian religions, and of course taught by nuns and everything, but they really went quite into depth on the other religions, and at no time did they ever put them down or try to convince us that they were wrong or anything. They always treated them with a lot of respect.
Yeah, except that they were wrong. Except that the religions were wrong.
Well, nobody ever said that.
The religions were false. They were not. Well, come on. What is the Catholic Church? The one true religion, right?
Right.
So what does that make every other religion on the face of the earth? Do you have to be told that? Or can you deduct it?
Well, no, you have a point, except that I never got the feeling that anybody in the Catholic Church was ever trying to discredit other religions or try to talk against them.
Well, when you're the one true religion and you tell your people over and over and over again, just in saying that is discrediting every other religion. It's saying all the other religions are false religions. They are not the true religion. Right?
Right. But I'm just saying that I'm not surprised that he didn't speak out against Islam. Everybody, you sounded surprised, and your next caller sounded surprised that he didn't blast Islam or didn't, get mad at Islam or different things.
No, I beg your pardon. It was quite the other way around. I was very surprised that he wouldn't come out and say that it, indeed, satanic verses was blasphemy. Because, of course, if Islam is a legitimate religion, and if they are indeed worshiping the same God, if that God is being insulted, then that's blasphemy. So, in other words, what he's really saying when he and the cardinal refuse to call it blasphemy is that the Islamics are not worshiping the real God. So it doesn't make any difference.
I have a question. Did the cardinal actually come out and say that it wasn't blasphemy? I was never clear on that point.
Okay, let me literally read to you what they sent me. It's not that long, so I can quickly find it.
Because I would think just by nature, I haven't read satanic verses, and I haven't been able to figure out exactly what's in there, because nobody ever says exactly what's in satanic verses, but just the title of it sounds kind of blasphemous.
This is what they sent to us. Cardinal, quote, well, I just think, speaking of satanic verses, well, I just think it's imperative that the Muslims here in New York know that we share with them deep distress at the attack that has been made on their faith. It is not for me to talk about what constitutes freedom of speech or what should or should not be censored. Certainly, we would denounce totally death threats or anything of that nature. But as I said publicly, we deplore seeing anyone's religion just treated with seeming contempt and ridicule, or treated with anything less than great reverence. For more than 20 years now, the Church has formally recognized the authenticity of many of the basic techniques or teachings of Islam and the relationship to our own teachings, and we would like to see Islam respected just as much as Catholicism, Christianity in general, and Judaism. Press, would you have the book censored? Cardinal, I don't deal in censorship. There are government matters, constitutional matters, matters of the First Amendment. This is not a matter for me to determine. Press, we advise you, what advice would you give to New York Catholics who might want to go out and buy the book? Cardinal, I think it would be very foolish. I would give them the same advice to Catholics in New York who would want to buy the book that I gave concerning the last temptation of Christ. I think that our Catholics are intelligent enough and mature enough to recognize how foolish and childish attacks against another religious faith are. And I have to leave that up to the judgment, therefore, of our lay Catholics to decide whether they want to read something of that sort or not. I would personally consider it a waste of time, but that's a judgment that others can make for themselves. Press, have you read the book, Cardinal? No intention of reading it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a very balanced kind of...
I think it's pretty wishy-washy.
Well, I think he was right in saying that he would leave it up to the intellect of the individual Catholics, and that, you know, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I would think it's a waste of time, but I wouldn't tell other people not to read it.
I think it's a waste of time, too. I'm not, not much into fiction myself. But when the Cardinal speaks in the Catholic Church, that has a hell of a lot more weight than what you say or what I say.
No, I agree.
And, again, I am just utterly astonished that the entire Christian world, not just the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church happens to be one of the few coming forward and making statements, but the entire Christian world doesn't join in with the Islamic world and condemn this as blasphemy. It would have to be if you really have respect for Islam.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it sounds like it would be something blasphemous, but I think if it were written as a statement of fact, people would come out and say, well, that's blasphemy. But as I take it, it's not something that's supposed to be taken literally. Is that true? I mean, is a fictional work?
Well, insulting God, whether how you do it, I would assume if you believed in God, how you do it is irrelevant if you're insulting Him.
Oh, yeah.
She or it, as the case may be, depending upon your particular belief.
Yeah, is that what he really does in the book?
Okay, you have to know a little bit of the history. There's some very serious questions, scholarly, historical questions concerning Mohammed. Not the fact that he existed. He did exist. There are no two ways about that. Mohammed was illiterate, so he dictated the Quran to his secretary. There are some questions concerning whether or not the dictation was accurate, whether or not the dictation actually took place, or whether or not some portions of the Quran were written after Muhammad's death. There are also some questions concerning funding and morality of Muhammad, as there are about almost any historical figure, not just to pick on Muhammad per se. So what is being done in Satanic Verses is many of these legitimate historical questions are being satirized in the book. And the fundamentalist Muslim is not terribly different from the fundamentalist Christian. He or she will not tolerate any discussion, dissent, questioning, whatever, of the religion. None.
As if
Zero.
someone wrote a book making fun of Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Saying maybe he didn't know what he was talking about.
Precisely. Saying that, maybe Jesus visited whores and stole money from the collections and wasn't a prophet at all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that maybe, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John made up half the stuff they said, that Jesus said. It would be very similar to that.
So a Christian wouldn't really take the standpoint that he's mocking God, but that he's mocking Muhammad.
Well, I beg your pardon. Muhammad is not a deity, but he's as close to it as you can possibly be. Muhammad is thought of by the Islamic world as a perfect, an absolutely perfect human being. And so consequently, a perfect human being, of course, is a representative of God. You knock God's representative, you're knocking God. That's the way they would look at it. I thank you much. I've got to run them up against the clock here.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Off we go to Don Richards with a WFLA News Brief. Donald? Oh, boy, I'd like to see the source of his work on that one.
I found it fascinating when I thought about that.
I find it a little bit hard to believe.
So do I. I mean, I look at it, but apparently there's some very wealthy people in this country.
Well, I know there's some very wealthy people, but I'd still like to see some work on that. But however.
This goes back to your question from yesterday. Can you be pro-Christian and not be anti-Islamic?
Well, what an interesting turn of events. Or vice versa, now that you mention it.
Because I don't
God, I love when my audience pulls a stunt like that.
You know what's interesting about this is that if you feel that your religion is the correct religion, in other words, you have the pipeline to God, and you have the one true faith, how can you not blaspheme other faiths just by not believing in them, by saying that they are wrong? That is the greatest blasphemy of all.
Well, no, that is not blasphemy. Blasphemy would be knocking something that you already concede is sacred. I mean, I cannot, for example, blaspheme the God of the Bible because in my way of viewing things, the God of the Bible doesn't exist. So, you know, I cannot curse God. I cannot call God's curse upon you since I don't believe that God deals in that kind of thing, okay? So, you know, only people who believe in God can blaspheme God.
Well, I agree, but what I'm saying is, let's say that I believe in the God of the New Testament.
Uh-huh.
All right? And by believing in the God of the New Testament, am I blaspheming Allah, who is also the same God in the Muslim point of view?
Mm-hmm.
Am I blaspheming Allah by saying that Muhammad was incorrect?
Well, obviously not, because they don't believe in Allah, even though they say that they do, even though the Catholic Church has taken this official position, as well as I suppose a lot of other Christian churches, that, well, yeah, you know, the Muslims are basically pretty good guys, and it's all the same God, ha. They don't mean it, because if they did mean it, they'd be very upset. It's just lip service. It's just, well, you know, these are lost causes, so, but we don't want to cause any trouble with them, so we'll just say, yeah, they're okay. They're worshiping the same God. When clearly the cardinal doesn't believe they're worshiping the same God.
No, I think there's more to it than that, though. You think of the ramifications of the major book dealers, the bookstores in this country, having to say we are not going to carry this book for whatever the reason. You have, I think, 3/4 of the outlets in this country that would sell books have chosen not to carry this book because of the threats from the Ayatollah.
Well, yeah, 3/4, I guess, is roughly what it boils down to, but it's still just a handful of decisions because so many of the, you know, 1,000 of the outlets are Dalton and Walden book stores and malls.
But when we look at that, we look at a tremendous number of stores, whether it's just these 3 major ones, but a tremendous number of stores not going to carry this book whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Now, you think about this for a moment. Let's say that the next book that comes out that may be viewed as anti-Christ or anti-Catholic or anti-Baptist, or the next Last Temptation movie comes out. Think of the ramifications of this. Think of the...
No, I beg your pardon. There really aren't the ramifications because the cardinal isn't that powerful, an evangelist isn't that powerful. These people have nowhere near the power that Ayatollah Khomeini has. What we're dealing with here is international terrorism, plain, pure, and simple. And what the real fear is, okay, this time he's a little bit ticked off about a book. What's he going to be ticked off about the next time, and how's the world going to react to him? Big deal because the economic community in Europe has taken their ambassadors home. Yeah, they've also taken the book out of the stores, too.
But I view it as being a lot of religious leaders around the world are viewing how the governments and how the people and how commerce is bowing to this threat, and in the back of their mind, tucking this away someplace.
Oh, I'm quite sure they are. My friend, I've got to run. I'm at the end of the hour.
Thank you.
Be good. 2 more hours yet to go, please. Whatever you do, do not venture very far. Welcome back. 12 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. Hour number 2. That's right. Hour number 2 of 3 on this Wednesday, February the 22nd, 1989. It just dawned on me this is George Washington's birthday. Gosh. Georgie's birthday. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. In essence, an open afternoon. I, of course, started out by chatting with a guy from the New York Diocese about the cardinal and blasphemy and all kinds of good stuff like that. Have dangled out there a question for you, which I know you don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Are some commandments not as important as others? While referring to the 10 commandments, but that's okay. I genuinely and truly enjoy watching you guys squirm with questions like that. What's the mean? Are some commandments not as important as others? All the commandments are important. Then, sir, I would say to you, why is it not a sin to, or not against the law, to commit adultery? Why is that not punishable by death like murder is? Rose in St. Petersburg, celebrity caller. Hi there, Rose. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Rose.
Well, adultery is punishable by death in other countries, though, maybe like
Well,
Ireland.
we don't live in other countries, Rose. We live in this country here.
Well, I mean, some countries still think it's worthy of death.
Well, that's beside the point. We live here.
Okay, the person you spoke to earlier, was a priest or cardinal?
No, he was neither.
Was he a Catholic?
I believe he was.
Oh, well, I really admire what he said about respecting their religion.
Even though he then went on to demonstrate that he didn't have any respect for their religion.
Well, I think he did. See, I think you did, like he said, you tried to twist things.
I didn't try to twist anything, Rose. All I tried to do was straighten it out.
No, he said
he was the one doing the twisting, Rose.
No, he said that they do respect their religion, and I believe they do.
And then he went on to prove that he didn't.
Oh, anyway, some of these atheists and agnostics, I hear them all the time call in, and they think that to be an atheist or agnostic makes them more intelligent than the Christian, but I really don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think the Christian gets a lot more ridicule.
Well, Rose, I would tend to agree with you. Your religion has nothing whatsoever to do with your intelligence level. Unfortunately, sometimes your intelligence level has a great deal to do with your religion.
Anyway, I think... there's a line about speaking about one's wife and mother and God. And some people have no common sense, and they cross that line.
Well, which line are you talking about now, Rose?
When you speak of somebody's... you shouldn't speak about ridicule and have fun with talking about somebody's mother or wife or God.
Who says that?
A lot of people.
Oh.
They say...
Probably basically people that can't defend their positions.
Well,
that's
anyway,
there's
just some people are lacking decency and common sense.
Some people are lacking decency and common sense. Here again, Rose, I'm the one who's sitting on the radio, as the case may be, defending your God, and you're not even swift enough to catch on to that.
Not really. Haven't you said before
Rose,
that your God is not our God, but you do have a God?
No, Rose, I've not said anything quite like that at all.
Do you believe in a God at all?
Well, it depends on what you mean by God, Rose. God is a very complicated thought, concept. It's not as cut and dry as it might appear to be.
Well, I think I heard you say you do believe in a God, but not our God, or the God of the Old or the New Testament.
Well, Rose, if you feel more comfortable calling it a God, then you go ahead and call it a God. I would refer to it, of course, as a supreme being.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I think you're a blasphemer.
Oh, how's that, Rose?
You really get a kick out of knocking the God of the Old Testament.
Uh-huh.
There's an interesting point here.
Amazing. Here I am, simply asking questions. I'm a blasphemer. However, Mr. Rushdie isn't.
Oh, I don't know too much about him because I haven't read his book, as a lot of people have. Anyway, there's a real interesting thing here about Muhammad.
You don't know too much about me either, Rose.
There's an interesting thing about Muhammad
but you have no
and
problem
Buddha.
whatsoever in calling me a blasphemer. In what way do I blaspheme, Rose?
Well, you always say that you think of the God of the Old and the New Testament as horrible and all these terrible things. I've heard you.
No, Rose. I believe what you have heard me say time and time and time again. The way that God is depicted in the Old Testament is absolutely horrible, and that it could possibly be no other way except man who is being talked about in the Old Testament.
There's a whole lot of good. You never want to talk about the good.
Rose, what good did you have in mind?
Oh, there's all kinds of good. And
what good did you have in mind, Rose, in the Old Testament?
Well, okay, but before you hang up on me, I'll answer you if you don't hang up on me.
What good did you have in mind in the Old Testament, Rose?
The Old Testament?
Yes, well, what good did you have in mind?
Oh, he predicted Jesus coming. And just everything was right there perfectly.
Who predicted Jesus coming, Rose?
In the Old Testament, it was all saying he's coming and all kinds of stuff.
Rose, again, you haven't read the Old Testament. You're just going by somebody telling you that Jesus coming was prophesied. By the way, Rose, there's somebody in Clearwater that would like to talk to you. Clear, what did you have to say to Rose?
I think she's a primitive bitch.
A primitive bitch?
Yeah, or primitive mind.
Bob?
Yeah?
I wanted to point out that people do not say that Muhammad or Buddha were the son of God, as they say about Jesus.
Well, that's very true, Rose. I don't believe anybody has said that there were people who said that.
And
Rose, by the way, you have been insulted by someone in Clearwater.
She's slime. Hey, Bob.
Oh, what a Christian to talk like that.
I never said I was a Christian. I never said I was a Christian.
Well, Rose, I believe you're a Catholic, correct, Rose?
She's straddling the fence.
I don't think it's anybody's business. It is nobody's business.
Why don't
what
you
my
tap,
religion is.
Why don't you tap
nobody's
into your
business.
higher brain up there and get out of that primitiveness?
It is nobody's business what religion I am.
Well, Rose, you told us before that you're a Catholic.
I was reared as one, but that's nobody's business. Hey,
Oh,
Bob.
she's ashamed of it.
Bob, it's not. Hey, I don't want to talk to you, slimeball.
Oh, what a Christian. How nice
I
you
never
are.
said I was a Christian.
Couple of fine ladies there.
Hey, Bob?
Yeah.
Let me see. God, I lost this last thing. Oh, I don't know. Oh, Bob, how's that thing go about throwing pearls in front of swine?
I don't know. It's your book, Rose. Aren't you familiar with it?
Well, I'm tired of throwing the pearls.
You're tired of throwing the pearls. Right.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Your station would hire Satan himself for money, ratings, or success.
No, Satan wants too much money. The budget's a little tight this year.
Yeah, your station would hire Satan himself.
No, Satan wouldn't work for what they're trying to pay.
Get out of town, Bob.
Get out of town? What do you mean, Rose? What would you do in the afternoon?
None of you. None of you.
Nunya? What's Nunya?
Nunya means none of your business.
Is that a new brand of vermouth or something?
No, it means none of your business.
Is that red or white vermouth?
It means none of your business. Get out of town.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Teddy Webb, yes, the infamous Ted Webb, a man who raises hamsters for a living. Did you know that, Mikey? Did you know that Webb raises hamsters at home? He's got something like 20 hamsters. I couldn't begin to imagine what he does with them. But nonetheless, there he is with the sports.
Big market for him.
By the time they type that all on the pages in the room for it. Oh, well. I think it's going to be cold tonight. In any event, as I was saying, you people always misunderstand me. I don't know what... I came on the air at 3 o'clock and I said, look here, people. There's something I want to say. You guys don't have to talk about it. You know, because there's nothing to talk about. I got you by the gazungas again. And I don't want you guys to have to call up and say, oh, gosh, Lassiter, you got me by the gazungas again. You know, that's no fun. I mean, I told you guys you could talk about anything. I just wanted to point out to you that as this Rushdie thing drags on, there are certain things that become rather interesting and sometimes amusing. And then, of course, in addition to Rushdie, I also got to thinking about the Ten Commandments and how apparently you guys don't believe in them either, even though you say that you do, because, you know, we were asking about which ones are more important than the others, since, you know, obviously we don't give... But you know, that wasn't really the show. The show was whatever you guys wanted to talk about. I mean, my goodness, it's a day full of penthouse stories about baseball players who have rare diseases that they found out about on the Geraldo Rivera show, and what else? Cold weather coming, and Grammy Awards, and just on, and Cleveland Wheeler. I was just told, did you know this, Michael? They did about a 4 or 5 minute bit on us this morning, around, I'm told, about 7:40. I'll try to catch it on the rerun at Jones Cable tonight. But here's, you know, poor Cleveland Wheeler has in the last 6 or 8 months totally rescinded his order about, we'll never mention that man's name again. Anybody else can be talked about. That man, never again. Never, never, never. I mean, there are all of these things just out there, and you guys, oh, give me a break. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. I mean, you know, do I have to sit here and put up with celebrity callers like Rose in St. Petersburg? Is that really what it's going to take? 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Let me see if I can't talk you out of smoking, okay? Let me see if I cannot talk you out of smoking. It is something that, if you are a smoker, you probably want to do, but you haven't quite figured out how rarely twinkles.
Only on the good days, Bob. Investigators are now calling the disappearance of 5. You got it.
What about my log where it says 4:50? It says go to Don Richards for another news brief.
Well, it's sort of more. It's a news brief, but it's a news news. The main bulk of the.
Are you ashamed of the 4:50 news?
Of course not.
Then why don't you promote the 4:50 news?
Well, we'll have a news tease at 4:50. The news at 5 when Mickey's hand is, you know.
The news tease. That's not one of those things where it says missiles launched headed this way. Details in 10 minutes. You're not talking about one of those things.
Well, that's in essence what it is. Yes.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you,
The next news at 5. Here again, Bob Lassiter.
By the way, Cleveland, another thing I forgot to mention to you, I've been invited to speak to the Tiger Bay Club. Have you? I don't...
I know. I don't want to hear how you are, because I'm on trial. It might be a good time to bring up...
We didn't call him. They waited till the next morning when Sam was here by himself, and I
didn't say they called in that night. I said when they called in. I didn't say when.
Well, speaking of hamsters, sir, I must leave you to go talk with Ted Webb, who has a hamster update. Ted.
Bob, one of the most famous hamsters in the world, Adrian Dantley, has refused to report to his new NBA team, the...
I thought maybe you forgot me, Teddy. We have had a couple of earlier problems wrapping up Hanley south of Waters. Now what happened to the music? Bring the music back. 275 northbound north of Hillsborough Avenue. Minor accident. They've got about 14 police. Get out of the phone book! 14 police officers responding there. Drew Street and Betty Lane clearing up Clearwater, and right now Belcher and Harn. 66th Street North and 82nd Avenue North. Earlier problems clearing as well. Traffic just slow. Streets are wet. Reheat the Meatloaf, Martha. It's going to take longer to get home tonight. I'm Gary McHenry, 970 WFLA, airborne traffic. Oh, go wipe your sweat.
Go wipe my sweat? What does that mean?
I heard you screaming at the last guy. I know what you look like when you scream at people. Sweat starts rolling down. It starts rolling down your thinning hair, through your thinning hair, down past your semi-sideburns, into that scraggly beard, tipping off your nose, and just sweat pouring out of your forehead. It's disgusting. I feel better now.
Channel 10 anchor John Wilson on Teamwork.
Cheryl Brown is the most professional anchor that I've ever worked with. We can anticipate each other, and therefore we can easily help the other. And I think Cheryl shares those feelings, too.
John is a thorough professional. I know the obstacles he faces and how well he handles them. One reason I like working here is that I'm constantly learning from my co-anchor.
John Wilson and Cheryl Brown, working together longer than any other television anchor team in Tampa Bay. That's teamwork you can depend on.
News Radio 970 WFLA.
Yeah, sure, Mike, anytime. News Radio 970 WFLA invites you personally, Mike, to join us Saturday night, February 25th for the WBA, WBC, IBF championship title fight between Mike Tyson and Frank Bruno, live from Las Vegas. That Saturday at 9 p.m. Just before we went on, Michael said, right in my ear, you want to give me the promo? So that's why I gave it to Mike. Because I was about to tell you guys about the Grand Prix Car Wash, which I know that you're far more interested in than some silly old boxing match on Saturday night. The Grand Prix Car Wash. In all seriousness, the Grand Prix Car Wash is something that you should be interested in if you care about your car, and if you like to have your car looking good and protected from the elements, from that miserable sun that will be here day in, day out, relentlessly for the next 6, 8, 9 months. Anytime now. Have your car protected from the elements, from the sand, the salt. Grand Prix Car Wash does it all. The Grand Prix Car Wash, quality products, quality service, money-back guarantee. 3 locations to serve you, 1880 Gulf to Bay Boulevard, right across from Clearwater High. In Seminole at 10471 Park Boulevard, and the newest location, 3622 Gandy Boulevard in South Tampa. Special going on this week. They call it the first class finish. 2 waxes, a sealer and a polish, a scent for the interior of your car, an undercarriage wash and seal, and free Armor All for the exterior of your car. First class finish. Tell them Lassiter sent you, if you would, please. The Grand Prix Car Wash. Tampa. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Am I on the air?
I believe so.
My name is Tina Nave.
We don't need your name.
Well, I got it.
I didn't ask you for it.
I was calling to wish my mother a happy birthday.
You were what?
I was calling to wish my mother a happy birthday.
Thought that's what you said.
Her name is Louise Dean.
We don't need her name either.
Well, you got it now.
No, we don't, because they kind of stepped on it.
I won't tell everybody how old she is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I want to do is to wish my mother a great big happy birthday.
Have you ever listened to my program before?
No, I never have. She's talked about you.
I kind of thought that's why perhaps you might have called to do something like that.
Really? She talks about you all the time, so I know pretty much about you, and I've heard about you.
Cleveland Wheeler talks about me all the time, too, man, but we don't wish him a happy birthday on the show.
Well, I tell you what. God bless you. We'll talk to you
I know
later.
that you've never listened to the show before. 990-9352 in Hillsborough. 461-9352 in Pinellas. Tampa, you're on there at 970 WFLA.
I'm one of the fringe lunatics that you're trying to get out of the woodwork. I'd like to put my 2 cents worth in on blasphemy. And I have not listened for a pretty good-sized gaps of your program today, so this might be something that somebody else has said word for word even. It's, to me, the perception that the different religions have of God. It's not that we believe there are other gods. It's not that we even believe that our God is essentially different from the Muslims' God, but we perceive him differently.
Well, everybody knows that, sir. What's your point?
So the specific doctrines of our religions are blasphemy to the other's religion. The Jews stand on Christ.
That's right, sir. Anytime somebody is so arrogant is to say my religion is better than your religion, that's what happens.
So I don't think that you said that we should go ahead and condemn the author of the Satan verses, satanic verses, as a blasphemer, and I don't know. It's apparently pretty subtle and all involving symbolism.
Nothing subtle about it at all, sir. You either believe that the Islamics are worshiping the same God that you worship, or you don't. It's as simple as that, sir.
Well,
or you're so arrogant as to assume that you and you alone have the knowledge of God.
I don't think it's that cut and dried. I think we can
say... It is that cut and dried, sir. It doesn't make any difference whether or not you want to think it is, but it is that cut and dried.
Well, I think we can say things about God.
So in other words, sir, the Islamics don't know what in the hell they're talking about when it comes to God, right, sir?
I didn't catch that.
So the Islamics have no idea as to what in the hell they're talking about when it comes to God. Their concept of God is flawed.
I think that if you really believe a particular religion,
their concept of God is flawed, correct, sir?
In my opinion, yes.
I see. So you and you alone know what God really is, and all those billions of people out there who don't think the way that you do are all misguided.
Well, see, if somebody from any religion thought they were wrong, they would change to conform to what they thought was right.
Well, sir, the way that you feel is the way that virtually every single Christian feels, regardless of whether or not they're just a layperson or very, very high up in the echelon of the religion. However, what I don't understand is why they run around pretending otherwise. I don't understand why cardinals and evangelists and bishops and popes and preachers all pretend as though they have great respect for somebody else's religious views when they don't.
Well, I think you can have...
What are you trying to kid?
I think you can have respect for their religion in general.
Right, sir.
I think
yes, sir, you can't have respect for somebody who's a moron, can you?
Well, you have to work a little harder at it to have respect for them.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe, sir, you'd have to work a little hard at it, but people don't have respect for morons.
Okay, now, can I say something about the Ten Commandments?
Only if you want to stay on hold.
Sure.
Okay, put you on hold. Come back a little bit later on. Off we go to Don Richards, who doesn't.
Yep, still here.
Okay, go for it.
This is back to your original topic or question about the Ten Commandments.
Yep, which one's more important?
And I don't want to, beat the obvious, but it's clear that some are much more important than others.
Some are more important than others. Wait a second. Do you mean
unquestionably?
Do you mean to tell me that God put together the Ten Commandments and some are more important than others?
Yes.
Well, which ones are the most important?
Especially to our civil situation, our civil government. I would say, as you shall not murder. I think the least important.
Well, I would imagine that God thought the one that He gave us first was the most important.
You shall not covet.
I would have imagined that God would have thought the one He gave us first would be the most important.
To Israel at that time when He gave it, theocracy, it was the most important, probably. I think religiously.
Well, wait a second.
It is the most important.
Wait a second. Who gave it?